Today we're discussing my favorite rifle. This is the Nova Vista Leviathan, better known in the US as the Venturi Avenger. So there's so many things I love about this rifle. I've probably sold about 6 or 7 of them in the last month at our range, and the reason why I can do that so comfortably is the fact that this rifle just consistently delivers. You'll actually see when we look at some of the target scores, it happened to beat my Crown MK2 on this specific day, but what I love about it is the fact that it delivers. So if we look at the rifle, there's several components that we need to discuss. So the first thing is, if we look at the barrel inside here is a bit of a floating barrel, and one of the things that I would highly recommend when you acquire this rifle is the fact that you need to get a Donny FL adapter in the front of the rifle. The reason for that being, when you buy the rifle, it comes with a little plastic piece about this big, and all that does is basically touch the barrel inside this tube. So it's not really holding it in place. So whether you're going to get a silencer or not, my recommendation would definitely be to get the Donny FL adapter, because what it ultimately does is it keeps your barrel straight. So this actually goes over the barrel as opposed to that little plastic piece in the front, which dramatically increases your accuracy. Obviously, I'm shooting these SA air rifle silencers. Absolutely love these things, and I also think the weight of this stabilizes the barrel. So I don't have any barrel whip or barrel movement whatsoever when I use this silencer. So the combination, I think this is probably about 2,000 Rand extra as it stands today, but for me it's absolutely worth it. So I typically sell the Leviathan with the Donny FL adapter and a silencer. Any 2.2 silencer will work perfectly fine. Okay, we also then have a 300 bar cylinder, and I'll put the stats up here, but I essentially get about 70 shots out of this cylinder that are completely regulated. And I'm currently configured on my regulator at about 1600 PSI. When you get this rifle, it comes set at 2400 PSI. And when you read the manual, they're going to tell you, well, you know, that's sort of where it needs to be on average. That's absolute bullshit. So all of the rifles I've sold at the range, we configure on about 16 or 1800 PSI. With the hammer screw turned out one turn, and that gives us a consistent 820 to 830 feet per second on the 18.13 grain JSBs. Also, when we're going to look at the performance of this rifle, you'll see that I use these Gometa branded JSBs, and I've shot straight from the tin. I don't have time to count pellets or do any of that shit. It's literally take the tin, open the tin, load the magazines, and there you go. Talking about the magazines, the Nova Vista comes with one 10-shot magazine. So I highly recommend that when you procure this rifle, you immediately just order yourself 1 or 2 extra magazines, especially in light of the fact that you're going to get 70 shots out of it. So you don't want to shoot 10 shots and then load a magazine, shoot 10 shots. I mean, in essence, you can buy 7 of these magazines and you'll work through them in a regulated manner. So that's always a fantastic thing to have. So I mentioned that there's a lot of adjustability to this specific rifle. So we can adjust the regulator, and it's very straightforward to do, although there is a little catch in this journey. So the thing is, you can always adjust the regulator up, but you can never adjust the regulator down without depressurizing the cylinder. So you need to make sure that this is completely depressurized before you start adjusting your regulator down. So you'll actually see that there's a little purge valve just here. Now, I've seen a few times at the range, when you open up that purge valve, And you start, and by the way, you just crack it open, the air will start coming out. Eventually it will sort of equalize, and you just crack it open a little bit more until you get a 0 on your regulator settings here on the right hand side. But when you start filling the cylinder again, please ensure that that purge valve is all the way closed. And you might also see that, you know, if I look at the regulator adjuster valve, so what you want to do there is, when I've completely purged this, I'm going to take that adjuster valve and turn it all the way clockwise and 1/4 turn back. When you turn it that 1/4 turn back, it's going to give you about 1,000 psi on the manometer. So what you will notice as well is, sometimes, because that is open just a crack, when you start putting air into the cylinder, you might find a little leak there. Just take a screwdriver and just wiggle it a little bit, and that leak will immediately subside, and you can continue filling that specific regulator, so or cylinder for that matter. So what happens next is, you can make small little adjustments by turning this regulator screw anti-clockwise, and as you turn that, you'll actually notice that it will increase the pressure on your regulator. Now, once again, I've just mentioned that mine sits on 1600 psi. So in order to do that, it's sort of just over the 1/4 turn that this adjustment is made. So don't make big adjustments. You can rather play with the hammer spring. So as soon as you get here to 1600, 1800 psi, and you want to shoot your 18 grain pellets at about 850, that's where a rifle is comfortable with 18 grain pellets. You know, that's where you want the setting to be, 1600 psi, and then you can start playing with your hammer spring. Now, theoretically, they say that the hammer spring should adjust by about 50 feet per second. I find it sort of closer to about 20 feet per second, but I mean, you've got a hell of a lot of adjustment on the hammer spring itself. So you know, that's where I would do my fine adjustments. Also, just remember to let the regulator settle. So what do I mean by that? If I've made any adjustments to the regulator itself, just take 5 or 6 shots, just open it up, shoot it. You don't have to load any pellets to do that. Just let the regulator settle with about 3 or 5 shots in that process. Otherwise, what you do is you make those changes, you take the shot, you measure that shot, it's sitting at 875, and the next shot sitting at 835. So you want to make sure that that regulator ultimately settles, and that's where the configuration is done. Very easy, very straightforward. While we're at the bottom of the rifle, you also have a fully adjustable trigger. So you'll see that there's 2 trigger configurations. It's actually 3. So at the bottom here, we've got the sear screw. So you don't want to mess with that. There's really no need to do that. In the middle, you've actually got the weight adjustment of the trigger. Now, this trigger is set to 1.2 pounds, which makes it extremely, extremely easy to shoot. You know, many of the guys that I see at the range, new shooters sort of, and as soon as you start applying pressure to the rifle, it's going to mess you around completely, because if you don't hold the rifle exactly the same way every single shot, it's going to throw you off dramatically. So that weight adjustment for me is essential, and like I say, I'm sitting at 1.2 pounds. The adjustment just in front of that actually adjusts the first stage. So yeah, once again, you'll see that the first stage on my rifle is extremely, extremely small. And once again, it's fully adjustable. So you can decide how much of that first stage you want. Obviously, from a precision shooting perspective, I don't want to wait and wait and wait until you know I start feeling the weight, and then at 1 pound just get it to break. So that's why my first stage has been reduced dramatically, but people differ, and as a result, obviously you've got the ability to fully adjust your trigger configuration at the bottom of the rifle as well. Okay, cool. So let's put this baby down. So some of the other things that we need to discuss is this comes with a dovetail and a Picatinny rail. Now, this is one of the only rifles that I know that comes in this configuration, which is absolutely incredible. So on this specific rifle, I've got a dovetail configuration, and on a different range rifle, I've got the Picatinny configuration, and they both work perfectly fine. So one of the things that I have to mention straight off the bat when we look at the scope rail is that I haven't seen a single Leviathan or Avenger that doesn't have a 25 mil dot deficit. And what do I mean by that? I mean that every single one of these that I've sold, you're going to run out of height adjustment. It's just as simple as that. I don't know why they did that. I don't know what the fault is that causes that, but you either have to go and buy yourself some adjustable scope rings. So these cloverleaf scope rings is exactly that. You'll see that there's a bit of a gap here in comparison to the gap in the front of the scope rings, just so that I can get that 25 MOA. You also get Hawk MOA adjusters that you can just put inside your existing scope rings, and as a result that will just compensate for that 25 MOA deficit. So once again, I haven't seen a single one of these where I didn't have to go and make that change in the configuration itself. So highly recommend that if you're going to acquire one of these specific rifles. So that's really a detailed overview of the rifle itself. So if you've got any questions, just let me know. This rifle, oh, by the way, I almost forgot. So it's easy to shoot groupings. Very easy to shoot groupings. So if you look at people that you know, evaluate these rifles and write reviews on the rifles, will always do a grouping and then tell you know how magnificent a rifle is. So we've decided here at the range that doesn't make any sense to us, because you know, a precision rifle or a precision tool should be able to shoot a 1 millimeter dot 25 times consistently. And that's what you're seeing here. I'm going to blow it up on the screen so that you can have a nice look at this. But your ability to shoot that little 1 or 2 millimeter dot 25 times in a row is where a precision tool is separated from just the tool, if I put it that way. I have, just for you know, for shits and giggles, done a 5-shot grouping and a 20-shot grouping at 50 meters. So the 5-shot grouping turned out on 6 mil, if I scored that, and the 20-shot grouping turned out on 15 mil as I scored that. So, I mean, that's really the size of my thumb for that matter, and that's at 50 meters. So, yes, you can shoot nice groupings, but more importantly, you can consistently score with this rifle. So this, in fact, is perfect for competitions. I would highly recommend that people come and shoot it in competitions because of the accuracy. There's one last thing that I need to mention, unfortunately. So the one thing that I hate about this specific rifle, and all the others like it for that matter, is that the charging handle is extremely sensitive. So your ability to double load is almost guaranteed. I mean, I'm quite familiar with this rifle, and every now and again I still double load. So as soon as I actually cock over and I can feel that there's no tension on the lever, I immediately know that I've double loaded. But we use these at the ranges, range rifles, and there's many new shooters that come through. And even though you explain to them in incredible, intricate detail that you know when they cock this over, they need to ensure that it actually clicks at the back before they push it forward, inevitably they are going to double load. I mean, I've had as many as 4 pellets stuck in the barrel and then you need to go and clean the barrel from the front. I mean, it's quite a story. But in essence, inevitably, you're going to double load. Now, when that happens, so firstly, if I look at this magazine, we spoke about the fact that it takes 10 pellets, and also when you shoot the last pellet, it won't allow you to load again. So you know when you're out of pellets. If I looked at my AR, it didn't necessarily, not my AR, my air arms, it didn't necessarily have the same feature, but this, you know, when you take the last shot, you'll know that you've taken the last shot. But as I've mentioned, if you use this magazine and you've sort of loaded the first pellet, but now you're not sure, so you go and click it at the back and you load the next pellet, now 2 pellets are stuck within that barrel. And what happens is when those pellets get stuck, this magazine gets stuck in the barrel as well. You can stand on your head, you can't just push that out, because what's happened is that it's pushed the pellet in the barrel in just a little bit, enough for this next pellet to go into the barrel halfway. So you're literally sitting with a pellet that is halfway into the barrel and halfway into the magazine, and you can try and cock it, you can try and swear at it, it's going to make no difference. So the way that I overcome that is I've got like a little metal piece here and a small little hammer, and without any fail, at least once a weekend, I need to just go and tap out the magazine in order to get that out and to sear that specific pellet that gets stuck between the magazine and the barrel. So my recommendation would definitely be get yourself a little hammer with one of these rifles and a little sort of bit that you can use to get that magazine out, because inevitably you're going to get stuck. I would also get a long barrel cleaner that you can put into the front, and if any pellets are stuck, you can actually just push them all the way back. But that's literally the only thing that I can complain about. You know, if I look at people that own these rifles, they know that it's so easy to double load, so they immediately know when they make a mistake, they just open it up, take out the magazine, lock it up, take the shot, and then they can put the magazine back. But for newcomers, inevitably, you're going to have to tap that magazine out. So please, once again, ask me any questions. This is definitively one of my favorite rifles, and those are the reasons why. Thanks so much. Chat later.